It's always a delight to talk to Stacey Dales, especially on a week like this where the Bears are on a 3-game roll. They come back from the bye, managed to get a victory in Washington. Stacey covering it, and you just heard her interview there with DeAndre Swift, always talking to the pertinent people. Stacey, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, guys. Doing really well. It's a nice rainy day in Chicago, and I love when players swear during my interviews. So if it's the word hell or whatever it may be, I don't need an apology. DeAndre Swift was phenomenal on Monday Night Football.
He had a great game.
His best game as a Bear, and certainly they take that with momentum into this week, Stacey. But let's start with the conditions. You were there. Jake Moody kicked the game winner anyway. How difficult was the wind? Was the rain? How surprised were you with what happened with Jake Moody?
You know, I wasn't surprised because I think Ben Johnson said it, David, very appropriately that, you know, sometimes a change of scenery is really good for a player. This is a player who's had success historically, and sometimes when you're pushed to the test in tough environments, you rise to the occasion. It's not unlike a basketball player or any athlete really playing through the flu and having an incredible performance. Your mind goes to a singular focus, if you will, and I thought that Moody was particularly dialed in. Unfortunate to see that blocked kick, but he had a really, I thought, focused and very accurate night, and I think that the conditions maybe helped elevate him to another level. It was raining sideways at one point when I was doing hits on NFL Network before the game, just an hour and a half before the game. Our entire set blew up in my face because the wind was so bad. So I give him a lot of credit, and I give the Bears a lot of credit for their performance.
And, you know, it's pretty extraordinary that the winning drive came, the Bears had gone, I believe, 3 and out, and then they get the ball back because Jaden Daniels has a fumble while trying to hand off. The weird thing is they're running like a running play out of the shotgun amid the pouring rain. It had started pouring. He's getting soaking wet, and he's kind of fumbling the ball. He never really had the ball as he's trying to hand it off. And, next thing you know, it's on the ground. The Bears get it back. And I know it's crazy to say this, but even though they hadn't done anything on the previous possession, I felt like when they got the ball back, well, they're going to march down and take a field goal to win the game. Like, it really felt in a weird way, because Caleb has been good in those situations, that they might win the game now because of that mistake.
It was wild. It was wild, Mully. You're not alone to witness what we saw as, time ticked down and things transpired. What I would just say is the Bears are finding out what it's like and learning how to win games. And that is, for me, like in critical situations, Ben Johnson didn't have immediate success in Detroit. Like, the Detroit Lions didn't have immediate success. You have to go back to that original model with Dan Campbell. The Bears lost so many close games last year. I mean, now we're seeing a team that is actually figuring out how to win close games. That was a masterful victory, in my opinion, and to be there and witness it, understanding what had happened in the prior season coming out of the bye. And thank God for Tyreek Stevenson and the Bears that is now a race, because they've reclaimed themselves. And we talked about this last week, you guys, going there and having a really good performance and being able to win. Despite all those variables, Mully, that you just mentioned, if you're the Chicago Bears, I take 3-game win streak, okay? 8+ turnover margin, tied with Jacksonville, the Chicago Bears, for number 1 in the National Football League currently. They've had 3 games in a row with 3 straight takeaways. The defense is taking the football away. 12 takeaways is second in the NFL behind the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, it's still early in the year, but it's their most through 5 games since 2018. I mean, I think there's a lot of positives to look at, and I haven't even touched on the offensive line. I thought the line was particularly good. Theo Benedett was particularly good in the run game. I mean, there were so many positives to take away from this performance if you're the Chicago Bears.
When you interviewed Theo Benedett about that performance, did you trade Canadian inside jokes with him?
No, but I should have worn my hockey sweater with him on my Canadian hockey, because I have an older one. He's got a newer model. I'm a little bit older than Theo, but I did, when he walked in the facility on Monday night, I did wish him a happy Thanksgiving. So I called him out and wished him a happy Thanksgiving.
That's great. And he has every reason to celebrate, Stacey. You're exactly right. Thrust into a starting role. He did earn it. Darnell Wright comes back, and we've been marveling all morning about him playing with that brace, the bulky brace, and yet that was probably the best the Bears came out of a game feeling about their offensive line because of the way they ran the football.
Yeah, David, it was really, to watch it in person, to see it in person and to be there and to hear the deflation of that stadium. When you go for, I'm hearing a little feedback, by the way, so I'm sorry if I sound a little bit delayed, but to go for 145 rush yards, to see what DeAndre Swift did, and then to go back and look at the numbers. So what's interesting, if you go to Next Gen, and you can say what you want about stats, but Caleb has a longer time to throw this season than he did last season. So he's just over 3 seconds to throw the football this year. But he's facing a lower pressure rate. It's right around 30% versus the pressure that he saw last season. So I go back and I kind of look at, this game and the last game and what's transpiring, and he's got a better offensive line. Pretty simple. He's got more skilled players, so there's more, coverage responsibility for the defense. And he's just gotten better. Like, he's improving drastically from game to game with Ben Johnson. Coaching matters. Ben Johnson is just so deliberate. The things that we've said about him are so true over these last 7 months. And I think that now I understand why the Bears were shuffling through tackles during the preseason. Because Theo Benedett, what he did in the run game, I've gone back and watched at least 3/4 of the game, and he was particularly good in his run blocking responsibilities. And I give a lot of credit to the Bears for coming out of the bye and being prepared on both sides of the football, particularly when it came to the run game. I remember when I spoke with Kevin Byard last week, you guys, he said the tail of the tape. You guys asked me last week, remember, Mully? What's going to be the conversation Tuesday morning? The run game. I said, who runs the ball better and who defends the run better? And the Bears won on both sides of the football.
Which is hard to believe, given the results that happened earlier in the year and the way they were situated going in. And frankly,
right.
Stacey, we've talked a lot about it this week. The very fact that, you can't do what you used to do during a bye week. You can't hold practices. You can't go back to basics. You can't have tackling drills. The players are off. So they made these changes. They made some personnel changes, got some people healthy, huge deal that TJ Edwards is back for the Bears in the run defense, but they couldn't, and as you say, Benedett was a starter and he wasn't going into the bye, but I thought it was pretty extraordinary that they could scheme, that their coaching is good enough. And I got to ask you about that element that now, Dennis Allen was phenomenal, I thought, in that game.
Yeah.
Now he gets his old team coming into Chicago. So, it's not like, people are going to call him a traitor and boo him like they did Ben Johnson in Detroit. But it's got to mean something to him personally to take on the team that he once coached.
Yeah, I think that this should be a route for the Chicago Bears. Now, I don't believe there's ever, as I say that, a route in the NFL, a route meaning a dominant performance. But Chicago's averaging 25 points a game offensively. Like, they're scoring points. The team they're facing is giving up 27 points per game in New Orleans. And Dennis Allen coached just a hell of a football game. We know how good he's been historically as a defensive play caller, Mully, to answer your question. I don't know if emotions are going to go into this because I think the Bears are solely focused on the Bears. I think there's an upward trajectory happening with this football team that's really impressive. And they're getting better and better and better. And everybody is looking themselves in the mirror right now, I feel like. Well, Ben made a comment last week that Caleb doesn't make the same mistake twice. Do you guys recall him saying that?
Yeah.
I believe it. Like, I do think Caleb is taking the coaching. Obviously, in his post-game press conference, he called Ben Johnson a mastermind. There's a lot of really positive things happening here for the Chicago Bears that I think you have to look at. And, man, the place should be rocking because you're going for your fourth straight victory at home this Sunday. And things are just, getting better and better and better. You face New Orleans, Baltimore, who's kind of been the most shocking story in the NFL for me this season, given all their attrition with their injuries and their record, and then the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bears should literally win their next 3 games. So that to me is very interesting to look at the schedule and where this team could be here in another 3 weeks.
Yeah, given your vantage point, any insight into what DJ Moore was playing through, the pain that was obvious, the injury that we found out later? He still didn't really miss significant playing time. He was on the field to the end, and now he's, he returned late. He stayed in the hospital overnight. He definitely is the guy they need, but it seems like he did play through a lot of pain. Tough guy.
Yeah, but he did that a couple weeks ago, David and Mully, right? Man, he's tough. I don't know further whatever the team has given us is essentially what I know. I don't have any further information on that. I think we're all kind of waiting, but I think Ben mentioned that it was he has a groin issue. Yeah. But it was really impressive to see him closing things out and being a part of it in a really important game for the Chicago Bears. He's a tough guy.
Yeah, they really, to win, that I guess it's the first time in league history that a team has won by the identical scores of 25-24. They had to block a punt to get to that point against the Raiders, and then they needed that field goal at the end to get to that point against Washington. I guess it's the last time a team won 2 games by a single point was in 1925, like something crazy like that. So they're on a real roll, and you got to feel good about the fact that they're winning. But as we've been talking about, there were plenty of errors in that Raiders game that needed correcting. There are plenty of errors in the Washington game that they're going to have to correct. So to be able to win despite some subpar moments in the game is incredibly impressive, especially with a first-year head coach.
It really is, Mully. And I will say this, and I know that the listeners right now will be nodding their heads. That penalty call on Theo Benedict was absolutely pathetic. For them to call that based upon his positioning, which we didn't really have a great vantage point on.
Right.
But if we don't have a great vantage point on it with multiple cameras on a primetime game, and the official calls that on a Rome Odunze, which will go down probably as the best touchdown this year that was called back. That was absolutely disgusting.
He deserves a Kraft dinner just for that call.
Yes, that
against
call.
him. Yes.
And I'm not one to come down on, when I go back and look at games, official calls, because it's a really hard job to referee in any sport. Right. And at the same token, to call that, okay, like that is to me inexcusable, because it wasn't like Theo jump-started the defense, right? This wasn't something where he made a little slight move, or there was an innuendo at the line of scrimmage that caused a complete disruption, or this was a questionable PI call, right. Anything of that nature. This was a complete, tiny maybe, if they did call it and really saw it. Now, I would have to go back and understand and talk to them and go back to the pool report. But like, you come to a full stop at a four-way and you slightly roll through maybe.
Yeah,
that's the
it was
best
harsh.
analogy I can come up with.
They did warn him, and Ben Johnson did say that he was warned prior to that call. So
but it wasn't an illegal formation. His helmet was where it needed to be. It was
his foot was back further than it should have been. His helmet was still in the right spot within the threshold. So it was a little bit. I agree with you, Stacey. It was one of those calls that did not have any impact on the play itself.
That's the point. That's the point, David. There was no impact on any course of that play that Theo Benedette, like, why would you call that? I just imagine the trajectory. It killed the momentum for the Chicago Bears.
Yes.
Like, they had to claw back. I would have said that either way. Like, I don't have a bias going into these games. The winner, the best team, and ties should be ruled out of football. Like, I can't stand the fact that the Green Bay Packers tied with the Dallas Cowboys. It was horrific. But like, to see any game, a team claw back and win a game, or be on the road in those conditions and win a game, that's why it was such a great performance. Like, the Bears played through a couple of calls like that I thought was pretty exceptional, and you give a lot of credit to the coaching staff.
Where are you this week?
I am Detroit, Monday Night Football for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so that'll be a fun one.
Yeah.
It's been a kind of weird schedule, guys, because of the international games with NFL Network. So they air at 8:30 Central Time every Sunday, so we don't really have a show. So I've been kind of pushed over to Monday games, which I can't complain. I got one in Washington, D.C. that was phenomenal, and I'm going to see one next week that's going to be phenomenal.
You know, I got to tell you, it's really difficult following the league, how upside down things have gotten in different ways. And like, you know, we talked a little bit about the Bears, who have games, you know, coming up where they'll play Baltimore and Cincinnati. Those suddenly look winnable when they looked impossible when the season started. It's just so strange to watch just what teams are rising, what teams are falling, and what we think of teams as this season is progressing.
You're so right, Mully. The NFL is fascinating every year. You know, we mentioned earlier the schedule. The Bears have the Saints this week. They are 1-5. The Baltimore Ravens, I think, are 1-5.
Yeah, incredible.
They have them at Baltimore. That is a winnable football game. We'll see how Lamar Jackson's injury is progressing. Cincinnati is the following week, another game on the road.
Yep.
And then you're back home against the New York Giants. Like, you're right, Mully. The schedule always finds a way to work itself out, whether it's good or bad for a team in the NFL. And I think you're seeing, this is as much parity that I've seen in a very long time in the National Football League. When I think about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens, all teams we thought were going to just kind of run away with their schedules, and that hasn't been the case. And you're seeing some teams that have made drastic improvements. I mentioned the Jaguars earlier.
Yeah.
The Chicago Bears are one of those teams. It's really cool to see the parity right now in the NFL.
It's been great to see. I'm glad you're enjoying it because your Sooners lost on Saturday. Sorry about that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, David has this game, Stacey. You must be torn apart because this game features Caleb, Spencer Rattler, and who did you say? Cade Horton.
I wondered if Cade Horton, Spencer Rattler, and Caleb Williams were ever on camp at the same time, Stacey.
Yeah, right. Listen, so I was watching OU Texas on Saturday, and I started playing some. I'm a very strange person sometimes. I was actually like playing superstitions with myself. I thought maybe if I stopped watching it for a little bit. So I went out and I took the dogs for a walk. I came back in, and nothing changed. Nothing changed. And then I thought, well, maybe if I just turn it off altogether, what if that helps? Nothing helped. So thank you for reminding me of my miserable Saturday, David.
I'm sorry.
That's hilarious. Stacey, you're the best.
Safe
Thank
travels.
you so much.
You guys are. Have a wonderful week, guys.
You too.
That's Stacey Dales. That's hysterical.